Definitely, definitely. Hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in to the Energy Healing Network. I have the privilege this afternoon to have Leslie Porter joining me today. How are you doing today, Leslie?
I'm so well and happy to be here, Tim.
Oh man, thank you for bringing your light to join us today. Tell our audience where you're joining us from today.
I'm from Los Angeles, California. Isn't technology awesome that we could talk like we're together in the same room, but be miles apart?
We're right here together, right
We're
here
in the
together.
same room.
This is really an illusion.
Totally.
Yeah,
It is really.
it really is. But right now we're in the literal sense. So yeah,
Right, exactly.
yeah. Well, introduce you, tell our audience, more about yourself and what led you on your path of healing yourself and healing others.
Oh, such a long story. I'll try to summarize it. So, I would say, I think there's like a moment in our lives, at least for mine, where, and you and I kind of discussed this earlier as well, where there's like a fork in the road, right? Something happens, there's some sort of rupture, um, and there's a fork in the road. And I remember thinking to myself, really young, actually, there has to be a different way. There has to be a different way than this. Um, and so I started really seeking out really, really young, like different ways of being, different ways. And then, life happens, and it's not always pleasant. And that's me being vague about it, but sometimes it's really, am I allowed to cuss in this?
Yeah, yeah, we
Okay,
can,
it's really fucked, right? Like there's things that happen that are just super fucked, and you have to I can name like 15 things right now that have been really awful, and then you get to choose like which direction to go in. And I kept choosing how to help myself and heal. And so I winded up getting crazy amounts of certifications in different healing modalities. About 26 years ago, it started. I had planned on doing something completely different, but I feel like this chose me. So I kept going in this direction. And then I started seeing how it was helping people. And so at this point, I do things like help with trauma, but I also help people sleep better, have less anxiety. I help them actually also with functional movement so that they feel better in their bodies, moving in a functional, better way, and more in like an intelligent movement way with yoga and Pilates. But I also do other things as well, like breath work and meditation and Ayurveda and stuff. So I do a lot of things, but it's all to help a specific individual versus, you know what I mean, versus like I want to look at the person and see what's really happening for them versus my own agenda, right? Like it's really like what's happening, how can I help?
So dealing with traumas and sleep, those two things that the world is dealing with right now. So you're tapping into something that the world needs. Kind of get a little bit more in depth with how you kind of dealing with those issues.
Well, I was I'm 46 right now, and when I was in my early 20s during one of my ruptures, my nervous system, I ended up having a lot of anxiety attacks and panic attacks, and I stopped sleeping literally for months. I stopped sleeping, and I never went on medication. What I did was I started studying crazy amounts of healing modalities to figure out what I can do to heal myself with my own sleep issues and anxiety. And so I ended up creating this huge toolbox that are holistic, that help with that. So that's where it really started, was my own stuff. But I see how I actually have helped people get off of sleeping pills. I've helped people get off. I don't work with mental illnesses really, but I've helped people get off of, especially if they don't need it. 'Cause sometimes I feel like, even though I know there's a means for, doctors and they do help sometimes, I do feel that there's a percentage that sometimes just medicates.
All right.
Um, and they don't, some of my clients have actually not needed the anti-anxiety pills or not really needed the sleeping pills.
Right. Right.
And so I've gotten them off of it actually sometimes within a month or two, and they don't need it anymore because they just needed something specific to heal the energy lines or whatever it is, or change their diet even a little bit, right?
Mhm.
And that was it. And then it was done. They didn't need it anymore. So that has been really, really interesting. But what's interesting too is some people really want to do that work, and then some people like just give me the pill, right? So it just depends on who I get. But I would say that it's really important, especially with the work you and I do, to get people off of some of these drugs when they don't need
Mhm.
it, because there's actually studies going on right now. And I do follow the news, especially the health stuff sometimes, because they actually showed recently in the last few years that melatonin, Ambien, all of these things can actually cause dementia down the line if taken too much.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, I need to get my hands on that study because I know a lot of people taking melatonin.
I know. I'll email you it. It's really scary. So I try to tell people, like, I know it's a quick fix, but let's find something else. Let's figure out something else, because I don't know about you, but I don't, if I could do whatever, I mean, we can't control some of our life path, right? There's certain things we can control, certain things we can't.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can know ahead of time that this pill causes X,
That's right.
maybe we should avoid that.
Kind of like a lot of medications, you find out about it after you hear someone comes, the lawyer comes on the screen and says, you've been doing this, that, and the third, call this number. It usually, it's not something that's proactively known that you can take this, but know that this is going to happen. And so yeah, that's being educated about what they put in their body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to educate. Like, I think that's really what my work is about. It sounds like yours is too. Like, let's educate, let's support, and create accountability to help people get from, you can heal. I've seen it. I've seen people heal. Even this weekend, we watched a video of a man going through his trauma process with being in a concentration camp. And like, his process of learning to feel safe again. He'd probably done some work with this practitioner ahead of time, but he was still struggling with a couple things. But watching him move through his process and seeing him start to heal, even physically, if he can do it.
After almost 80 years. Wow.
Right.
That is saying something. And not only that, it speaks to the ability for your brain to still have plasticity and be able to be retrained again.
Absolutely. I've seen it in my mom. My mom is in her 70s. And, we didn't always have the best relationship when I was younger. I mean, she was not, great with me. She just wasn't. And then in the last few years, especially, she was like, no, I want to repair this with you. And I think there's something about that will, right? There has to be some sort of drive, some sort of will. And now we're much better. Like, it's just much better. She's become, I could see it in her healing process. She is better. Not to say it didn't take lots of arguing, but be real about it, right? But it was a lot of, it took a lot of rupture and repair. But she wanted to at that age, even. She wanted to.
Well, the thing is that she had, because these things, like you just mentioned, will. You have to, and that's the thing people don't realize if you have the will within your mind, you're capable of doing anything.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And the thing is like, here's an interesting question. What do you feel creates will in someone? What do you like? I've actually been honestly thinking about this for a month now because of, and I can tell you why in a second, but what do you feel? Do they have to fall so badly to want to get up again? But some people don't want to get up again. So what creates that will to get up? What do you think?
You have to be inspired by something most of the time, some type of inspiration within. Because a lot of, as you see in this case, she was inspired by wanting to have a better relationship with you. After all these years, within her, she felt the need and the drive within. Basically had the thought within her mind that this is something she wanted to do,
right?
And then put the action behind those words with that intention to continue to do these things,
right?
And she's continually doing these things on a daily basis, which has allowed y'all to get to a different place right now. I mean, I guess I kind of make this thing because people can use will, but you have to put the action with the will.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It's like, I agree with you. It's funny. I was thinking the reason this had come up is because I have a relative who doesn't eat well, overweight, um, I think I think sometimes we get into this place where some people go, well, I don't have accessibility. This person has accessibility,
Right.
very much knows all, totally gets it, right?
Mhm.
She does. She's having heart issues right
Mhm.
now. She's younger than me,
Mhm.
doesn't exercise, again, doesn't eat well, doesn't work on her stress. I've literally sent her articles. I've sent things out.
Yeah. Yeah.
She has no interest. She has two little kids and has seriously no interest in working on her health. And I get curious, like, what is it going to take?
Well, on an energetic standpoint, I kind of look at it on the solar plex area. That is the energetic center of your driving wheel.
Mhm. Mhm.
And a lot of people are holding what we call shame in those areas where,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know, various things they don't want to start because they're ashamed of not finishing things or not thinking they're able to do these things, even though
Mhm.
they're proving themselves all the time they can, but their internal belief is they can't. And, I see these with people who start exercise programs, as in my personal training, side of the business. And over years, people, yes, they have these health issues. And I've had people come to me and tell me, literally doctors have sent them to me. And if we don't get this under control, there's going to be a heart attack or a stroke issue going on. And they know it. And we can go through the assessment, get them set up, do everything, but that person is still lack the drive to get it going because of what's within themselves. And this was the battle I was fighting with when I was dealing with things on a physical level.
Right.
When I became an energy level and started dealing with things on an energetic level, then I would fully understand that these people, I deal with emotional energies too. And a person come in what we have called desire.
I love it. Yep.
But the desire hasn't met the acceptance of what we need to do. See, I desire to do things, but you still have fear there. When we get to courage, now we can vibe. We call it raising our vibration, and actually begin to accept what we need to do, and then begin to basically become reasonable, which is the next step on that emotional ladder about what about the approach they need to do, as opposed to the person who has desire but has not accepted the commitment they need to do and the things they need to do to get to that point because they're living in fear of not accomplishing these things.
I'm
And
I'm I'm with you. And it was funny, like courage. And there's talking about energy centers, the root of courage comes from a word in French called cœur, which actually is the heart,
Ah,
right?
interesting.
So there's this like the will of that the solar plexus and like getting the ground, but then there's the heart to remind you to be like extra loving and compassionate around, the process
Mhm.
um, of finding your way and then recognizing, oh, I'm in my way again. Oh,
Exactly.
don't
Mhm.
have to do this again. I don't have to, or, haven't you found this too? Like even in your own process, I think that sense of when you get to know your own energy,
Mhm.
there's that moment where you hear your brain do this sort of, but you're super aware of the critical side, right? And so you drop into your heart again and you go, no, 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 no.
Right,
This is not the energy I want to live in.
right.
This is not you have a choice. You
Mhm,
have a
mhm.
choice.
That's right. That's why we have to be aware of these things happening when they're happening.
Absolutely. Well, the mind can be such a trickster.
Yeah, it can. It can.
I know mine could be, I'm like, really?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
sometimes my mind does these things and I'm just
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
we're not like, I almost feel like it has its own personality. Like, like
Yeah. We have polarities within ourselves.
absolutely. But
So it
that's
is.
but that's what makes probably you and I like really good at
Mhm,
what we do, right? Because
mhm,
we're aware of
mhm,
our own energetics.
mhm,
We're
mhm.
aware of our mind's trickster life and then can step back and
Mhm.
recognize, okay, where do we go from here?
That's right. That's right. Stop.
Where's the resonance, right?
Mhm,
Where's the energy resonance? And
mhm,
I found the more I connect to the energies of my body and like it's interesting how there are certain things that become just so much more clear, you know, just like so much more clear. And sometimes we just have to get out of our own way.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, you're kind of trained to do these things because you want to be in control of things instead of letting things just be.
Yep.
You know, and that's kind of what we have to kind of be aware of ourselves when we're observing our emotions and observing ourselves. Because you know, when I was going on the journey, what I had to learn was to not be consumed by your emotions, but be, you know, more of an observer of your emotions. And then you're able to navigate these things and learn more about yourself. And so in these times, the things that come along, you don't realize these are happening until things come along, and then you see how you reacted. You know, your mind kind of reacted differently than it would have before, when you would have been kind of being your emotions instead of being an observer of those emotions. So then you can make the choice to say, yeah, no, we're not doing that. You know.
Right. I mean, I think especially with like what we were talking about even before we were on here, right? Like yours and my histories and the stuff we've witnessed or the stuff we've been through in our families and like all these things, you know, there's I think what got my and still gets some of my family really stuck is not understanding how to navigate these emotions that you sometimes don't need to respond to. You don't need to be reactive to it. You need to it's not your enemy, right? Like the emotions are actually not your enemy. They are really uncomfortable. Like, let's be real about it, right? Like, this is really uncomfortable. This sometimes is a shit show. It is really effing uncomfortable, right? Like, it is awful. Like, we're not going to pretend it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
But that doesn't mean you need to participate in the war.
That's right. Because it is exactly what it is, an inner war within yourself.
Oh my God. Yeah. I always, you know, and then, you know, we get this. I had a client recently come back to me last night, actually, and she was saying she literally has stopped doing everything I taught her in the last 5 years. She's just coming back now to start doing it all again. And she feels much better since we talked to start again. But she said, you know, she feels so disconnected from the light because of the news and the wars, and she feels like a war inside herself, and it's like a reflection outside of herself, and she was describing this to me, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, that makes total sense.
Yes, she's at least conscious of it, though the rest of the world isn't knowing that tuned into this stuff right now, and this is why it navigates their emotions. You know, and it's been a long for almost 5 years. If we want to put it, we want to add COVID to the same mix.
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah,
We should, because you had people glued to the TV screen with a big red symbol telling you deaths all day long. And you know, and people are just like sitting in their homes. They all caught up in not knowing how to deal with their own emotions, and pile on just keeps going. It just keeps going. You know, it's no actual relief. It's just more darkness, more gloom, and you know. And then the one thing they did decide they want to keep open as an essential place was the alcohol ABC store. So
I wish that wasn't true, but it is.
I couldn't make it up.
You can't. I mean, it's exactly what happens.
Yeah. We nothing but doom and gloom, and then we're gonna get drunk to go along with it on the process of it all. And I don't know if anybody paid attention. You know, back then there was all kinds of spousal abuse and all kinds of stuff going on with people. And then we saw when they did have a protest, like it just went all out everywhere. And just because people were just living with these emotions within themselves, and they were creating all these things within their head, because as we know, your what's going in your head projects your reality. And they were living this reality of nothing but doom and gloom every day. and they're still living within their bodies right now because when we go from that to we went to a war to Ukraine, then we've gone to a war to now
Now
we're
we're in like Gaza. Yeah.
yeah, and it just keeps piling on. And then you look at what's going on in your politics. If you're looking at that, and there you have it. It just keeps piling on. A lot of anxiety,
Of
a
course
lot
it
of
does.
insecurity, a lot of fear. And to the point where now, I try to try not to navigate too much, but I have to. We live in a Christian nation where things are based on fear.
Yep. And do you mind if I add in something to this? I mean, I honestly, I mean, I think I'm with you. Like,
Yeah.
I agree. And I feel, and I don't know how else to say this, but I feel like it's there to set up so we all become sheep.
Oh, most definitely.
So I feel like, you know what? Hey, the less you think for yourself, the less you take responsibility for your stuff, the less you, hey, good idea. I have a good idea. Why don't we blame each other
That's right.
for all of these things?
Right.
And decide that it's their fault, right?
Yeah.
It's their
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah.
It's your fault I feel anxious. It's
That's right.
your fault I feel like crap. It's your,
Mhm.
oh yeah, but don't forget your parents. Don't forget,
Right.
hey, don't forget this whole culture of people, right?
Exactly.
Like let's all like
yeah. Let's do something about the border. They did it too. I mean,
let's decide that it's all everyone else's fault.
yeah.
That and I mean, but to be fair, there's a percentage of people, and maybe it's because they are terrified power is going to be taken away from them. Terrified. They are terrified we're growing. They are terrified we want to be different and connect. I mean, look at us.
That's
You're
right.
completely different, and we're talking to each other, and we get along great.
Exactly. No more working together, trying to build things together, spreading messages together.
Of lightness, right? Like we don't need to. Why would we fight? Like there's nothing to fight about, really. Like we all are human. We all want to eat. We all want to feel safe, right? Like, oh, I say that and I tear up because how true is that? We all just want to feel safe. I mean, I was thinking about our talk earlier. Like you just want to feel safe walking around the street.
Well, the thing is, if they really want to get down to the bottom of it all, we all are one.
Of course we do, right? We all want to.
We all are one. That's why they say treat your brother as you treat yourself, because we are we are one. If people want to get, and they really want to get into, and I don't call it religious, I call it spirituality. You want to get down into what Yeshua, Jesus was talking about. He was talking about there was no division. We were all one. There was no division.
Yep. No, it was funny. It's funny. My brother and I were talking a couple years ago, and I said we were. It was a room of me, my mom, and my brother, and he was saying. I said to him, "I'm like, do you have any question of if you can go running around the park at night here? Like, is that something you would question, or would you just go do it?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I feel fine running around the park at night." And I look at my mom. I'm like, "How do you feel about running around the park at night?" She's like, "I would never do that."
Right.
The minute it turns dark, she's not going to go on a walk outside at all.
Right.
And I said, "Why?" And she's like, "I don't feel safe."
Right.
And I said to my brother, "Do you feel safe?" He said, "Oh, I'm fine." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, let's look at this." Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is a really, poignant thing. Yeah, like, I don't feel safe running around a park at night. I'm in LA. Like, I would never do that. It probably isn't safe for me to do that.
It isn't. It isn't. And you're a woman, and that's kind of the deal. And we and me as a man, if I was your husband, man, I would not feel safe for you doing that, because these are the things that come along with it. But I'm kind of like your brother. I feel like I'm good, but the flip side of that is I'm probably not, because if I'm running around the park,
oh God, is there going to be like
this could be turned into something totally different? And so, but I can't live my life that way, because
no, you can't. We both can't. It's just doesn't. It's and I feel like that's why, like, that Oh, I'm so glad you're doing these talks because it's so important to recognize that like the energies of things and the resonance of things, like if you
Mhm.
can just step back and take a moment to check in, like you can actually also tell if someone is safe or not pretty quickly.
You can feel the energy. You
Oh,
really
you
can.
can. You
Yeah.
can, for sure. And if they are, and some, what's sad is sometimes it's not even that they're say unsafe in general to you. It's that
Mhm.
they're so unsafe to themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that inner war you can feel.
Yeah.
Some of them are not safe to others, to be fair. They're not. Like they're
True. That's true.
externally not safe.
That's right.
But some people are so internally
Mhm.
unsafe within
Mhm.
themselves.
Mhm.
You can feel that too. I think it goes both ways. The
You
externality.
know, I would definitely agree with that. Because speaking as a black man and being younger, you
Mhm.
you feel sometimes you've been in situations where you assume people are gonna assume you're gonna do something. And so because of the energy you carry, because people assume that you're carrying the energy, you're trying to be extra, knowing that you're a little nervous about them because you don't know if they're nervous about you. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but it's so interesting because I see it's so weird that it's interesting to me that the way power dynamics go, because I totally hear you with that. Of course you're going to feel that. Like, why wouldn't you, right? If someone is creating that perception,
Mhm.
I mean, it's going to be the same thing with me. Someone is going to assume something about me based off nothing.
Yeah.
Like they're literally going to assume it based off nothing. It might be because I have purple hair. I mean, who
Yeah.
cares, right? It's going to
Right.
be something. They're
Right.
going to assume
Right.
something.
Mhm.
But half the time it's not even real.
It isn't. I mean,
At
look,
all.
the thing I like to tell people, because back when the things were going on and they had cops shooting and things of that nature, and had people saying, well, they had this perception, well, maybe you were doing something wrong. And I had to explain to them, okay, so I'm a black man. I have absolutely no police records at all. But I've been surrounded so many times by police that even in my job parking lot because the car was driving. Never asked me for my license and registration. Never gave me anything. Surrounded me with guns. So nervous that the guns were shaking.
Good.
And then told me to put my hands on the steering wheel. When I didn't comply, I told them no, I'm not going to move because I figured if I move, they may get a little happy and start shooting. They finally opened the car, put me in cuffs, put me in the car. Never told me what it was I was being arrested for. When I asked them, they made up, said we had a report of a stolen Infiniti. That's what I was driving at the time. Asking me for my license registration wasn't good enough. Put me in the car, search my car, find nothing. Then have to come get me out of the car and tell me thank you for not moving. So I mean,
That is, and then just God,
yeah,
that makes me angry.
yeah, yeah. And again, I mean, the perception would be again at most people, because I always tell people, they like to think that the stereotypes. Okay, well, I've never done a day's time, never done a prison time. I worked, took care of my family, never, don't have a police record, anything. It still didn't stop anything though.
This is
So
such bullshit.
yeah,
It's such bullshit. It's funny though, because, thinking of my own history, I have never, and I hope this is okay to say on here, but I have never felt unsafe with a black man in my entire life.
yeah,
Not once.
yeah,
Not once. I have never felt unsafe with one. I have never felt threatened. I have never felt like they're going to hurt me. I have never felt like they're out to get something. I've never ever ever felt threatened by a black man in my entire life. And so it's interesting. I mean, I'm in LA, right? So it's
yeah,
totally multicultural. I have a lot of
yeah,
different cultures here.
yeah, right.
And I grew up with all of them.
Mhm,
And I've never felt that way. I mean, I've
mhm.
definitely had my issues with different people. I'm
Yeah,
not saying, but
yeah,
never a specific culture.
right, right.
But like, it's just stunning to me that, and the thing is, it's almost like the media set that shit up, like I mean, not to say we don't have a history of racism and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
problems in our
right,
history. We do I
right.
mean, definitely with black people and black culture. I mean,
Mhm,
obviously, like with history
mhm,
books right now,
mhm,
and I mean, how
mhm.
about the people who are denying the Holocaust happened, right? Like, there's all these. So,
Yeah.
like, these, I think they're the same people. So,
Yeah, definitely. Racist.
racist
Yeah,
and
yeah. And,
what
and
is
they're
there
trying to
like an
rewrite history.
anti-Semitic and
Yeah, exactly. All of that. And
anything that
misogynistic. Because they rewrite history with women too. Not just black people, but they rewrite it with women too. So
There was actually a John Oliver on a side note, there was a John Oliver episode where he was talking about how women are actually treated in the medical world,
mm,
and how they actually were using men's bodies to come up with solutions to women's problems. They weren't even studying the female body, they were studying the male body. And what's interesting is they were saying, especially with pregnancy and um, a white pregnancy and a black
mm,
pregnancy, they were saying that because they haven't studied some of this, a lot of women have been dying in childbirth, and with a black woman,
mm.
they've been dying a lot more.
I heard that. I read it.
And it was horrid.
Mhm,
And I was just like,
mhm. Yeah,
I mean, how can you guys, like, how is this even like, why are we doing this? This
yeah,
is a human being. Like, what are you doing? I
yeah.
mean, that's not even, so
Mhm,
we were watching this like man who lost his wife, and I was just like,
mhm. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's amazing.
I
But
mean,
we,
it's stunning. It's
yeah.
like it doesn't even make any sense, right? Because
Mhm.
it's stunning. So it's like, how does one wake up? Right?
That is a
How do
million
we
question.
how does one, we don't deny it, right? We're
Right,
not denying it.
right.
But I mean, I can definitely feel like, whew, this makes me upset. Like, I
Yeah,
get it. But
yeah,
I also know it makes me also want to be proactive and want to make a difference, right? Like,
yeah. And you're doing it. You're doing it because you're helping people heal, and that's what it's going to take because it takes love to heal this world.
and I do work with all cultures, races, classes. I work with different people. So
Yeah,
it's not, I'm happy for that, because I
right.
feel like I'm okay with
Mhm.
working with all different kinds of people. I don't just work with white women.
Right,
Um,
right. Exactly,
Not at
exactly.
all. Not at
Well,
all.
it's important that you are able to, work with multicultural because, a lot of times people, it's not so much stereotypical stuff that goes on. And they see a person that cares and actually, really cares, it makes a difference. And one person like yourself makes a whole lot of difference in a world where it's been shown so much hate that has come, you know, unfortunately in the same package, and it defeats those stereotypes and it starts putting love in the place of hate. So don't ever underestimate the things that you're putting into this world because you're making a great difference right now, and I appreciate that. Definitely.
Oh, thank you, Tim. I agree. And I appreciate you and you doing this work too. It's really, it heals.
And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help the world heal, and guess what? The world to us does not have a color.
No, no, no. It's funny. My one of my energy teachers is a black man. Like, he is my teacher. And he's been my teacher since I was 22.
Uh, yeah.
And yeah, and when a lot of those shootings were happening, we were doing these online gatherings.
Mhm.
The minute they started, and he was talking about, like, he has a son who, even though he actually is married to a white woman, the boy looks more black than white. And
This
he
country
was
costs
talking
money.
about how scary Garrity was. And so we just really did energy work around the space of like healing the anger and I this man is someone I love, and he supports me. He tells me, he's like, I just want you to learn to use your voice more. Like, it's just a powerful, so it's I feel like this kind of bridging is just so, we're so lucky to
Yes,
be
we
able
are.
to talk about this and
Mhm,
um
mhm.
share it.
Yes, honestly, talk about it because there are a lot of things that people don't honestly want to talk about. But you got
No,
to get
they
honest.
don't.
Got to be honest with to fix it. And change. Before you can change anything, you first have to get to the root of something. And like, if you can't get to the root of it and actually see it for what it is, then
Yeah.
you just put band-aids on it, and
Yes.
that's not solving problems. This country does enough band-aid work, and we still keep seeing these problems.
I'm so over the Band-Aid thing, I could
Yeah,
puke,
yeah,
honestly. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
with you. It's always the root. It's always the, but there's a lot of people, and I unfortunately have to end this conversation a little soon. I'm just looking at our time because I have a client in a few minutes.
Ah,
Um,
got you.
but the thing that I was going to say is that it's interesting because, you know, I think what's important, especially if you're going to, I feel like you are genuine and you are doing real work, you know, and I feel like sometimes you can talk to healers who are just not, it's like they're not paying attention to the, I don't want to call it darker stuff or like the shadow stuff, right? Like they're just sort of flight to the light, kind of
Yeah,
ignoring whatever.
yeah, yeah.
And it's honestly not helpful. Like, I feel like, you know, I'm sorry, but your mindset shit's kind of bullshit. And I don't really,
Right,
I don't buy it.
right,
I don't, I'm sorry. I
right,
don't.
right.
I'd rather have a real conversation where I feel like there's recognition of,
Mhm.
I see your pain. I get it. Like, what do we do with it now?
That's
Like,
right.
you know, versus like, well, you get to choose, you know, you don't have to be in pain. Well, that's
That's
not.
true. Like I said about those energies, people don't choose to have these energies within their body. It's just not the truth. And the thing is, if we know anything about things, we have this thing called shadow work.
Right.
You have to do the shadow work,
You have
whether
to
it be
do it.
you or within the problems. You have to go into the dark to put the light in there. You can't
I'm
just
with you.
be love and light, because then you're not being authentic either, because this is about being authentic.
Can we like neon light that one?
I mean, that's the only way you're going to get anywhere, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I know you got time. Could you get into Kundalini yoga a little bit before you go? I want kind of, you know, the people to kind of understand how you're working with that a little bit, you know, before we get out of here. 'Cause I know you got to go.
Yeah, I have at 2:00. I would say that with the sound work, 'cause that's really what you would ask me about. So I'll go into that
Yeah.
sound stuff. So in the with Kundalini yoga and meditation, because I'm trained in other styles of yoga too, but I have found with the Kundalini yoga and meditation that the chants affect your brain in a certain way where it gets your subconscious and unconscious literally out of the way. And
Right.
even when, you know, you don't realize it, it's literally affecting the chemistry of your brain so much that it literally, like, I could literally, I feel brighter. I feel like it's probably helped me look younger than my age, honestly, I think, because I feel like a playfulness sometimes, because
Yeah.
it definitely, so I feel like it heals, like it literally heals the chemistry of your brain. And
Mhm.
the way that energy works, different chants, different words affect the way you chant them and word them. I mean, honestly, certain religions have a mysticism behind them, and they all
Mhm.
have these sort of chants,
Mhm.
breath work, meditation practices behind
Mhm.
them, the sort of
Right.
mystical, and the way the tongue goes to the roof of the mouth, literally, and the words, how they're spoken, can literally affect the way the brain functions. And so I love silent meditations too. I do. I love breath work, but I found that those chants, the resonance they create, and the power of getting, I mean, even for myself, like power of getting out of my own way,
Mhm.
been really like extreme with that practice.
Hmm.
It's almost like when you know, I don't know if you've ever played the djembe,
The what?
the drum, the African drum, the
Oh,
djembe.
I've never played it before, but I've seen it done.
Okay, I
Yeah.
play it a little bit. And and when you get into the rhythm, right? Like you get into your own rhythm of you know, that
Mm.
when you can let yourself kind of like let go of your mind and get, you know, you can get this with dance too, this sense
Yeah.
of you let go into the sound
Mhm.
and you're to the side and you're just being danced,
Mhm.
right? You're just being moved.
Mhm.
That is what happens, I think, when you chant, when you get into that resonance, when you get into the sound current, you get to the side, you start being moved, you almost start being lived, something more divine starts being lived through you. You're almost at your highest self because you're not fighting with your personality,
Mhm.
your
So,
ego.
so what are you using? Om or something like that?
There's like, believe it or not, there's like 50,000 of these.
Really?
Oh my God.
How do you get access to some of these chants?
There's, I have, see these books?
Yeah.
Every shelf, I would say 7 of my shelves have chants in them.
You got to give me some suggestions on that, because what you're creating the voice resonance because most people don't understand. But breathe some of the breathing exercises, they're like humming, say for instance, it produces nitrous oxide within the body and things of that nature. So I know chants, your vocal cords are
Yeah,
producing.
I mean, I would say Om is fantastic. It's not part of the Kundalini lineage.
Mhm.
It's more part of the Hatha Yoga one. It's more Sanskrit. That would be considered Sanskrit. The Kundalini one comes from Gurmukhi, which is kind of a sibling of Sanskrit.
Okay.
Um, we might have to continue this conversation a different round, Tim.
We will. We will. I'm not gonna hold you up. I know you need to get ready for your next
But
class.
I'm open to coming back and talk to you more about this too if you want. I would love it.
Oh, we have a lot to talk about. So
we seem to have a lot to talk about. We
yes,
might
we
end up
do.
best friends or something.
Yeah, like look, like we've known each other for years, but that's what energy does for us. That's what this world is about.
I love it. I love it. But
Yeah.
we'll definitely be in touch. And I thank you so much for having me.
Well, I thank you for joining us, and you as well, audience. Thank you for joining us again and welcoming our beautiful guest, Leslie. As she will be joining us again, I promise you that because she
I
definitely
want to come
is
back.
talking us more about. So until our next episode, until next week, you continue to be blessed, continue to shine your light on the world, and continue to love yourself.